This next stitch is a variation of plain weave, tabby weave, but we're using something called roving with it, which is just unspun wool yarn, basically. What's nice about it is it's really big and fluffy, very soft, and can make really fun textures. It also can rip pretty easily. So you have a couple options with it. If you like how thick it is, you can weave as is. If you want it to be thinner, you can just kind of find a space to start pulling it apart and then rip the whole thing apart so you have a thinner piece to use. But I kind of like the thickness of this for what I'm about to do. What I'll want is to start by stitching it in a bit, but the thing we're going to do with this is we're going to use that tabby plain weave, but we are going to double up our warp strings because it is so thick. So I'll stitch just the tail of it in so I don't have to worry about it later. And I do have a bit of a bundle with it, so I might kind of lap it over top of each other. And I'm going to count every 2 warp strings. So I'm going to go over these 2, and then I'm going to go under the next 2. And then I can create kind of like this bubbly kind of texture. If I pull it tight, I'll lose some of that, which is fine if you prefer that look. But if I leave it a little bit looser, I get some of that nice fluffiness. So I went under, I'll go over these next 2, under, over the next 2, under. And then I'm gonna pull this through, but I'm gonna let it be a little more fluffy. I'll pull it up a bit as I'm going. Some could be bigger, some could be smaller. And then when I turn around, I'll just go under those 2. And it'll just be like your regular tabby weaving, just doing the opposites. You're just doubling up those warp strings. And then when I get to the other side, I'm gonna make sure that I puff up some of those pieces so I get some of that fun texture. And then I'm not gonna need all of this that's left over unless I went back and did another line of it. So I'm just gonna, if I can pull some of that apart so I have an end, and then I'm just going to stitch that in to hide away the ends. And that can just hide behind there. Something that's important when you do a big stitch like this, because if you turn it over on the back side, you're missing some of your warp strings because it's so big, is to do a little bit of tabby weaving to lock it in place. So I could just do like 2 or 3 or 4 if I want it to be a little bit more of my design. But really just 2 is what you need, 2 rows of that tabby, or you could use a twining row to help lock it in place. But I'll just go through and do that quick so that I know that it's locked in there. And just how you would normally do it, that over under. I'm gonna tuck that tail in because it'll just hide behind there. And come back the other direction, doing the opposite of what I did last time. And I can always do my arch, my bubble, strum, kind of press that up so it's locking that in. I might do 1 more row of that just to make sure it's nice and sturdy. Just making sure that I'm doing the opposite of what I did the last stitch. So it is locking in as I work through. So now I've got that nice little cloud there. I'll stitch in a couple and then I will take this off and leave a little tail to the back side. All right, and there I have my bubbly roving stitch.